Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Dan Cook, Director of Business Development here at Nadex. We're going to be going over the Pro Series Part 3 today on Nadex charts and tools for better trading. Real quick, just to make sure everybody should be seeing my screen. You should see that title slide up there and also hearing my voice. If you could, just type yes in the question box and then we'll get started. Awesome, perfect. Well, if we do lose the screen, we had a little technical difficulty on the Tuesday session. So if for some reason you don't see the screen, just let me know right away. Sometimes when flipping back and forth, because we're going to be spending a lot of time in the charts today, going over all the different tools that are available and how you can utilize those, and pretty much everything chart related today. Before we begin, though, I know we get a lot of traders of varying levels of experience, from the very new that have never seen a market before nor traded it, to those that have been trading for years and are new to Nadex. Out of curiosity, out of all the people we have on here, who has a trading plan? Just waiting here for a few more responses. And I'm going to ask one other question. Um, why does everybody want to trade? What's your motivation for learning to trade? Some great responses here. Definitely. Um, Perfect. You know what? I got to say this is a great group. I do see a few. Typically, the response, I see some great responses here. I'm not going to go into all of developing a trading plan. That's not why we're here today, but I like to start out these with talking about some trading concepts. One of the first things in your trading plan, and if you don't have one, we're actually I'm putting together some another webinar on that, which will go into a lot of depth. Um, when you're looking at why you start trading, typically, and this is why I say this is a great group, I see a few of the responses, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's the answer I hear most of the time, is to make money. Right? I mean, that at the end of the day is why people trade, right? We want to make money. One thing I recommend, though, you need to quantify that. If it's, is it time freedom? Do you want to do this part-time? Do you want to do this full-time? Whether that be something tangible. Maybe, I've seen some people that say, hey, you know what? I want to get a little bit of extra money because every year I'd like to take a trip. I'm not shooting to be a billionaire. We want to have realistic goals. And the reason I say it's so important, though, to actually quantify what you intend to use that money for. And a trading plan is a living document, right? We all change over the years. What I wanted when I was 22 is substantially different from my more advanced years now. But we want to quantify that, and we always want to review that. And we want to make it tangible. And the reason this is so important is because the markets can get frustrating, right? We want to make money, but we're also going to take losses along the way, and we need to learn from those losses. When we have something tangible, a couple of years ago, I was talking to a guy who actually wanted to, he had been working in a warehouse for 25 years, loved to trade, but wanted to do that full time. He put that in his trading plan. It's really a contract with ourselves, because it's so easy when we're trading, particularly, if we're taking a string of losses, to get frustrated, to get off track. And then all of a sudden the psychology part starts coming into play of, oh, geez, I just took all these losses. Now I have to double up. If we can keep in mind our long-term vision for what we want, that might be to spend more time with our families. That might be family vacation. That might be, whatever your dream is. Maybe it's a fishing boat. I don't know. Maybe it's just a little more peace of mind, maybe some security. We need to quantify those things. And I encourage everybody. I've just seen such a huge difference over the years with the people that I've worked with trading, when they actually quantify those goals and what they want and how it helps to keep us on track. So, all right, I'm going to stop preaching on that aspect now. Like I said, we're going to have more on trading plan and stuff in subsequent webinars here, as well as in the education center. But that to me is one of the key things, is just recognizing what our goal is with trading, because at the end of the day, it's not just about making money. If it was, what do we do with it? We can't take it with us when we go. So let's get started on Nadex charts and tools for better trading. Before we begin, risk disclosure. Trading on Nadex does involve financial risk. It's not appropriate for everyone. You need to always make sure that whatever capital you're using is absolutely risk capital, free money that's you're not dependent on to pay bills or buy groceries. That is really the surest way to lose in any market, whether that be Nadex or futures or forex. Always make sure it's risk capital. We always have to take responsibility for our trading decisions, right? Again, doesn't matter if you're trading forex, futures, Nadex, whatever the case may be. Now, one thing I'm very proud of here at Nadex, and people have heard me mention this all the time, is we don't have something called a margin call. All products here are defined risk, meaning you can, unlike leverage products, where you can lose more than you even had, up on the trade because they're margined, right? With Nadex, it's always defined risk, so you can only lose the amount that you put up for a given transaction. Now, that said, risk management is still key, right? If you have, let's say you had a $50,000 account. If you put $50,000 into one trade, you can lose that $50,000, right? That's not a good way. So risk management is still paramount in trading, but that peace of mind of knowing, provided you're following your rules, that there's not going to be a big nasty surprise, something I'm pretty proud of here at Nadex. One last risk disclaimer, this is material here is copyright owned by Nadex. Please don't record or reproduce it, republish it, or distribute it. If you want to, reach out to us. I'll give you some contact information at the end. Provided it's approved, then we have no issue with it, but we just want to make sure where it's ending up is a viable source. So with that, let's get going. What we're going to be covering today, and we're going to spend actually most of the time in the platform, which is good because as a technician by trade, I like pictures and visuals much more than words on a screen. So hopefully everybody can agree with me on that. So we're going to be taking a look at the different charts available, what they mean and what they represent. At certain times, you may want to use one or the other. Then we're going to be diving into the toolbar. Where do you find your tools to help analyze the market, whether that be indicators, drawing tools, both. And some ways to use technical analysis, right? And I'll say there's no perfect methodology when using technical analysis. I've spent my life studying it, but it is a helpful tool, in my opinion. Again, risk management, even more than any type of analysis, fundamental or technical, is paramount. And then we'll take a look at placing an order and closing a position from the charts. At the end as well, and I know we've got a lot of people on this webinar, so a lot of you have probably already taken a look at the newest platform that we launched into beta. There was a webinar done on that yesterday. I'm going to show you where you can find that. The charts and the things that we're going to be able to do with the new charts, the tools that we can add and various things are going to be substantially stronger than what we're going to look at today. Again, though, it's in beta test. We want people to try it out and give us feedback. I know a lot of people are still using our old platform, so that's what we're going to take a look at today. All right, now you should be seeing my my trading platform. Let me know if that's the case, because this is where we went off track the other day. You should be seeing the Nadex platform, and I'm just going to go select a market. All good. You should see me selecting Euro USD right at this point. All righty then. All righty. So what I've done, and we covered the finder and how to find markets. I'm just going to take a look at a currency market. So in my markets window now, I see the Euro USD. This is the daily contract. Oop, didn't mean to open up the order ticket yet. So we've got the Euro USD contract. If I want to open up a chart, right, I want to analyze it. I've got a few options here, and I'm going to show you a bunch. So right here underneath that charts tab, this is a binary option, and this is a chart we're going to take a look at quite extensively. I'm just going to click on it and open it up. This is what's called a binary ladder chart. So you can see on the right the strike prices, the binary ladder. And this is a chart we're going to dive into more, but I just wanted to show you where to find that. One of the cool things on the new platform, and I'll mention it, I know we have a lot of people trading our touch brackets, and one of the big pieces of feedback we received was it's hard to visualize on the chart, right? You can see it in the markets tab. With the new platform, you'll actually see the ranges on the chart. You'll be able to select those. So hopefully that's that's feedback that came back from everybody. Again, it's highlighted on the webinar where I'll show you how to find in a little bit. A couple of other cool charts that we want to take a look at though, and through this drop-down menu. So hopefully you can see that there's the binary ladder chart, this drop-down arrow, right? From there, I can open up an order ticket on this. Personally, I think it's easier just to click either on the bid or offer. If I want to buy or sell, or I can just open it up straight from the thing. This is actually a really cool chart, and this is a great way to start learning how binary options can move. I'm going to click on this quick chart. And so this quick chart, what this represents, you'll notice there's no strike prices. And if you look at the right-hand price axis, it goes from basically 0 to 100. This is actually the price of the binary option as it's moved through time, right? So this particular binary option, and you know what, I'm going to actually change this chart type real quick. And don't worry, I'm going to do this quick. I'm just going to change this to a line chart. So this binary option, if you can follow with me over here, when it first launched, it was trading at 50. The price of the binary option, now this isn't the underlying market, this is the price of the binary option, dropped all the way down to, that looks like about a 28, dropped below 30, came back up to 60, again, dropped below 30, back up to 60, about 32, 33 there, and currently it's trading at about 91. This exemplifies like how a binary option moves, right? This is the price of the binary. This is not the underlying market. It went from actually what would be considered at the money to out of the money, back in the money, out of the money, in the money, out of the money, and now it's pretty much what would be called deeper in the money, trading at about a 92 on this. So when you're first learning, if you're learning about binary options, this is a great chart to reference just to look at their historical movement. Sometimes, when you look at pricing in the relationship to the underlying market, it's good to see how that binary option moved. It's also good to understand, and this is a key point, right? If I would have bought at 30, right? Let's say I bought at this low right here, and it came up. Now it's trading about 91.50. We still have about, this is a daily contract, so we still have about 4 or 5 hours in this contract. We don't have to wait for expiration. We can actually close this contract out if we wanted to lock in profit. One thing I always want to stress, we talked a lot about it yesterday as well, but you don't have to hold it till expiration. You can close out a full or a partial position if you're trading multiple contracts, right? Because you can see it can move very quickly. So that is basically, that's what's called the quick chart, and it's a very handy chart to use if you want to see how a particular binary option actually moved through time. Right. We have the Nadex settlement index chart. This is going to be very similar to the binary ladder chart, and now I'm going to change it back to candlesticks. The reason I like the line on the particular binary option one is because it, the candles in that case sometimes are a little bit elusive. I like the line as it kind of smooths it and shows me the highs and lows a little bit better. So here we have just what's called our indicative underlying index chart. This is really a blank chart. Some people prefer not to have the strike prices on their chart, and I'll show you a few of the tools. If I want to minimize this, I simply click those arrows. If I want to expand it, I do that. If I want to pop this chart out, if you're using multiple monitors, right now, if I try to move this chart outside the platform, it's not going to go anywhere, right? I can't move it outside the platform. So this square right here, if you pop that out, and you're only viewing one of my screens, so you won't be able to see it, but I can now move it outside the platform, right? And so if you're using multiple monitors, using multiple charts at one time, that's a great tool to be aware of. You can, this is basically a square box, we'll pop it out. And if I want to close it, I simply click the X. All right, so let's go in and look at this binary quick chart. I'm actually going to pick another strike here, binary ladder chart. We'll bring that up and let's take a look at some of the tools. So on the right-hand side, we have our binary strike prices. Right? Sometimes you need to scale your chart by simply left-clicking and holding down. You can drag this chart and drop it as far as where you want it to your scale, right? So very handy, very easy. If you ever see a chart like this and you don't see all your strike prices, Typically it's a scaling issue, particularly when the markets move pretty big. What can happen is, right, they go off the chart, or you get a big move, and the chart is still seeing from top to bottom the strike prices. But in order to encapsulate the entire price move, the chart has to be scaled. So if you ever see the strike prices kind of disappear, simple left click, drag up and down. All right, let's talk about some of the tools. So if I left click on the chart, and I'm going to do this a couple times, when you first open the chart, see my cursor down there, you have your time frame. You have your time frame as far as Wednesday, Tuesday. This is a 5-minute chart currently. We're going to show you how to adjust that. But if I left click on this chart, this is going to open up my tools tab. So I can select the interval, right? If I'm a very short-term trader, maybe I'm trading a 5-minute or 1-minute. If maybe I'm trading something like a weekly binary, maybe I want to go out to a 30-minute, get a little bit better view. What this basically means is that each of these candles represent 30 minutes in time, right? Very simple. We've got some great education on candlesticks if you're not familiar with them, but each of these candles now represents 30 minutes in time. If I want to see an hour in time, each of these now represents the movement over an hour of time. In candlesticks, it represents the open, high, low, and close, right? And so I'm going to just zoom in here to 15 minutes. Now, from an analysis perspective, one thing I'll say, even if you're trading short term, one thing that was very helpful to me as a trader was using multiple time frames, right? Particularly if we're using indicators, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. If we're using indicators, and kind of a premise in technical analysis is lining up multiple time frames. Typically, the longer the time frame, whether you're using patterns or trend lines or whatever, the stronger the indication. Also, if you're trading really short term, right, the old saying, can't see the forest for the trees, oftentimes we get caught up in very minute movements, right? Because a candle is a candle, a candle. If I took away the time frame, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But if I'm looking at a 1-minute candle, I'm only going to see a very small period of time. Whereas even if I'm a short-term trader, it might be beneficial to go out to like the 15-minute candle, get a little bit longer scope of it, and just see if there was anything out there. See if I'm approaching maybe a significant level of support or resistance, right? It's very helpful. Let's go back. So that's where you can select on the interval, right? We have the selection. For chart types, right? We've got candlestick, line, high-low, open, close, which is basically what's considered a bar chart. Similar to a candle, just a little bit different structure. And then mountain view. To be quite frank, in trading, I know some people like mountain and line. I would say probably 95% of the traders I've ever worked with are typically using bar charts or candlesticks because they have their own type of analysis that can be done, or information that's given within that specific thing rather than a smoothed out line. So let's go back to candlestick. So this is customizable as far as colors, right? So if I want to change it, maybe I don't want green, right? Maybe I want blue. That's kind of a purple there. And I'll just change this one to like a blue too, right? Save, right? Done. Now, that to me is fairly ugly. Maybe some people like it, but you can customize these. Some people prefer to have like clear bodies. Some people prefer to have it, let's say, a little bit thicker on the lines, right? Again, not my preference, kind of skews it up a little bit. If I just want to go back, let's say I made a bunch of changes and I just want to go back to what my original chart was, I just simply click reset to default and done, and I have my charts back, right? One other thing I want to do before we get into the indicators, because that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time. So I'm going to just go into show. We have all different options here. Now, one is high-low open close data. Some people like this flag. So basically, if I put my cursor on that candlestick, I can show the highest point that it reached, the lowest point that it reached, where it opened, and where it closed. Some people prefer not to have that. I can also, when we talk take a look at drawings and indicators, sometimes if I'm more of a price action trader, I might be using some tools, but I also maybe at times want to just take them off my screen. If you ever have drawings and indicators, you can choose not to show those, and we'll take a look at that again in just a little bit. I'm going to remove the ILO open close, and again, if I left click, I go back to my time frame. So let's take a look at some of the drawing tools. Again, just going to go in here. When I click on drawings, on the left-hand side, you'll see a list of tools. Arrows, you can mark up your charts, Elliott waves, ABCD. You can do point-to-points. You can add text to your charts. Trend lines. So let's just take a look at some of these tools. I'm just going to slide this chart a little bit over. So let's say we wanted to draw a trend line. And I definitely encourage you to, take a look around. I'm just going to draw a trend line here. I clicked on my first point, and so now I have my trend line. All right. Just going to scroll this out so that we can see a little bit better here. Now I've applied the trend line. One quick thing on trend lines, what I'd recommend, one, you need to have at least 2 points, right? But it's really not a trend until you have more than 2. And always draw them from right to left. Some people say, oh, that doesn't make a difference, or what difference does that make? In certain instances, it may not. In some, it really does. And never try to force it, never try to make it fit, right? Here we can see we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points in this trend line, right? Now, if I wanted to do a channel, I could actually duplicate that trend line. And again, I don't want to try to make this fit, but if I'm looking for a range that this may be moving in, right, I may do that. If I add that, and I think, oh, maybe I want the top of my channel different, I can edit my trend line. So again, I can change color. Maybe I want it to be a red. Click Save. Maybe I want a solid line instead of dashed. Click Apply. Oop. I'm going to highlight it again. You can tell it's highlighted when there's little circles. Click Edit. Maybe I want dashed, thin dashed, solid, and maybe a thinner solid, right? Click Apply. If I just want to get rid of that altogether, I just click Delete, right? So work with the right trend lines. You can also do point-to-points, which are just as they sound. Maybe I wanted to see this point and draw a line up to this top here, right? If I want to move it, it's highlighted. One thing I could see is what is the relationship from this move, and this is why a lot of people see it. See this? The height there was the same from this low to here as if we go from this low to here. Now, typically we'd actually start with that one, but see what this pattern is. This kind of goes back to what people would call maybe harmonic vibrations in the market, where you're looking for the scope of the move. You're also looking for the time in which it takes place, as well as the scope of the move to get an indication on where you may be seeing support and resistance. These point-to-points are very popular with people that trade things like the ABCD pattern. Again, if I want to get rid of that, I'm simply going to go and delete. So I definitely recommend that you work with some of these. A lot of great information out there. If I just want a vertical line, if I want a horizontal line, right, I can go in and just, I've got my horizontal line, I can drop it there. Maybe that's the top that I want to take a look at, and get rid of it. I can just click delete by highlighting it. And that's just a brief overview of the drawing tools. Again, you might already have your own methodology. If not, definitely take the time to study what you're using as far as trend lines, as far as any type of drawing tools, whether that be Fibonacci extensions, Fibonacci retracements, which is a very popular one as well. All right, so this was the drawings tool. Again, it's on the left-hand side. If I want my indicators, simply, again, click on the indicators, and on the left-hand side, we'll have a list of indicators. So I'm just going to go to RSI. One thing I'll say also on indicators, you need to understand what type of indicator it is. Is it a trend identifying indicator? Is it a momentum type of indicator, right? If you're using, let's say you're using 3 indicators and they're all momentum and they're all set to the exact same settings, they're probably all going to give you the same message, right? So as you study your indicators, as you get used to them, definitely understand what they mean. It's well worth your time. And also, one of the reasons why we offer the lifetime demo account is for you to go in and practice. Now, a demo will never teach you how to trade, right? It just won't. Until you actually put real risk in the market, you don't understand the psychological ramifications of risking money. What the demo account is there for is to actually give you an opportunity to learn how to use the tools, to test a little bit, and to avoid silly mistakes. If you've never executed a trade before, you probably want to make sure that you're doing it right. And you want to make those mistakes in demo account rather than in the live account. A lot of people have learned that lesson the hard way, myself included. If I want to make more room on my chart, I can click and scroll if I'm adding multiple indicators. So if I want to customize an indicator, so here's my RSI. On the left-hand side of all the indicators, you'll see the name, and you'll usually see some information about it. The X will just close out that indicator. So I'm going to click on the RSI, and maybe it's a matter of just changing the colors. On the new platform, you'll actually be able to change your levels, which is something actually I rarely use the RSI actually as an overbought, oversold. That is traditionally how it's been known, as overbought, oversold. I actually like it for a trend line divergence, which is also going to be soon available on the new platform. So like I said, the new platform has a lot of cool tools that just aren't available with this older technology. So let me just cancel this, but again, you can change widths, colors, whatever you want. Maybe I want to add another indicator. Maybe I want to use an exponential moving average. I'm going to click on exponential moving average. Again, if I close out this box, right, I click on the charting and that closes the box. If I want to adjust this, right now, this is a 20-period exponential moving average. Now, you might be wondering, what's the difference between a simple moving average and an exponential moving average? A simple moving average, like for instance, this is set to 20. Basically, I have 20 candlesticks, that's where that line is created from, the previous 20 candlesticks. If it's a simple moving average, maybe based on the close, it will just give me the average close of those 20 without regard to time frame. The exponential moving average actually gives me putting more weight to the nearest candles. Let's say I wanted to add additional moving averages. For example, you might be familiar with the term of a moving average cross. So I'm just going to select a few here, and I'm going to click apply. Now we can look at this and say, you know what, this doesn't seem like I can read that very well. Those colors, again, just aren't great. So again, right, they're a little bit lighter. Maybe I want to pick a little bit different color here. Perhaps I want a little bit thicker line, but I still want it to be a solid line. And I want a solid line for this one. I'm just going to change these. And for this one, maybe the color is all right, but I'm just going to make it a bit thicker. I click apply. So you can add a lot of different moving averages. And kind of the premise of the moving averages is we have our slower moving average, which is the 100 candles, right? It takes into account a longer time frame. It's much more of a smoothing average. Then we have our 50 period moving average. By the way, this moving average will be set to whatever your chart time frame is, right? So right now I have a 15-minute chart. So this is going back 50, the kind of maroon line there is going back 50 15-minute periods. If I change the time scale on my chart, if I go back here to interval and change it to 1 hour, right? Now it's going to be showing me the 1 hour 50 periods, so that maroon. The 100 is going to be showing me 100 1-hour periods. Let's go back to 15 minutes here to our previous chart. And kind of the premise here, and again, nothing is perfect, so these are all just premises. We're looking at crosses, and we're looking at potential support and resistance. So in this case, people might say, okay, well, when both my 20 and 50 cross over, if you can see that right down here, the slower moving average will typically, or excuse me, the faster moving average, meaning the fewer periods, will invariably move faster, as one would suspect. So here we see where the 20, which is the black line, crossed first the 50 and then the 100. A little bit later, the 100 or the 50 crossed the 100. Now, this is considered a lagging type of average. Now, one thing people will look for, though, is support and resistance. And you can study moving averages for a long time. Right here, we had the cross. Like, for instance, if you really look at it, right here, where finally the 50 crossed, if you got in on the cross here, on the 20 and 50, you still had a bit of an up move. But if you had the slower one here, the 50 and the 100, if you go straight up, you're already about the top of that move, right? So it can be lagging, something to be cautious of. In some cases, we had actually a cross right here showing a potential down move where they crossed pretty quickly, indicated a potential shift. So if you were short here and then you see this cross again, that could be an area to suggest moving out your trade. Again, you can do this on a 1 minute basis. Here again, we see the cross, and this time we would have maybe seen a good up move, right? Right now, they're both still above the 100, and sometimes that can say, hey, this trend is going to continue, right? All sorts of different ones. Now, let's say I set up my charts and I get them all set up to what I want, right? And I want to save my suite of indicators. I've got my RSI. You know, I'm going to add one more indicator before we do this. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do a, let's see. I'm just going to do a Bollinger Bands, right? Now my Bollinger Bands are on here. If I want to come back here, let's say I want to save this as a template, right? I'm always using this. I can also, by the way, adjust my Bollinger Bands for different deviation levels and different periods, right? Depending on the time frame you're trading, what type of charts you're looking at, it may be beneficial to change those. Again, that's why they're customizable. Depends on trader type, what you're actually looking for. Again, you can change the colors if you're not happy with them. Maybe you want something a darker green, you want a little bit thicker so you can really see. Maybe this one for the bottom channel, you want a green, and again, a little thicker. Click apply, and now you can see them a little bit better. So I've got my indicators set up, and let's say I always want to use this. Now, if I close this chart and bring it back up, the indicators will remain. But I can also save layouts, because in certain times you may want to, you may have strategies for different types of markets. You might have a strategy for a flat market where you find certain indicators work better. You may have strategies for volatility or volatile markets where you're expecting volatility or they just are. You can save these as layouts. So I click on layouts, I click save as, and I'm just going to call this one volatility, right? Save, right? So if I go into layouts and I want to click apply, here are just some of the ones I've clicked. I can't even remember what they are because it's been so long, but I can set up a whole list. So if I do this one, right, whatever this layout was, apparently nothing, I can do that layout. But again, if I want to go back to those, most people aren't going to be doing webinars like these when they're trading. I have a Friday test, itchy RSI. This is my volatility. I want to go back to my volatility that we just created. I click apply. All my indicators are back up at their same settings. So very easy to use. Again, you know, depending, maybe you have indicators that you find work better in something like a stock index rather than a currency, and some that work better in currencies than stock index. You can save that as a template as well, right? So we now have our technical tools. Again, this is really a high-level overview. One last thing I want to show you how to do is place a trade from the chart, right? We covered opening order tickets before. Let's say that I thought, hey, this market's going to drop. I think it's going to revert back to the trend line. And again, this is not any type of advice. This is in a demo account, and I'm not doing any real analysis. This is just for example. So if you're following along and you've got your live account open, please don't place this as a trade saying Dan said so, because this is purely for example. But let's say I wanted to sell this particular binary option. I think it's going to drop and revert back down relatively quickly, right? Maybe it's going to come back down in here. So I'm going to look to sell this contract. I simply put my cursor right there, right? I have a market order. I'm going to put, I'm going to put 5 contracts on this. If I wanted to hit a limit order or put a limit order in, I'd simply go to this. For sake of example, though, I'm just going to do a market order with protection, right? Okay, now we can see that we're in the trade. We're short 5 contracts on this strike, right? We can see our floating profit and loss here in the red, right? Because we have the bid offer spread when we first get in, right? What if I want to set now a limit to take profit? And I can, right? Right, I'm in this trade right here, right? So I clicked on that, right? So if I want to set a limit, right? Maybe if this hits 50, I want to close out all 5. So I just selected limit, 50, place order. So now I'm working an order. So here we have the working orders on this particular instrument, right? We got 5, we got filled. We can monitor from this. But if we're going to different charts, right? Again, if I'm using multiple monitors, oh, we were just in profit there for a second. And let's see if we go back in and we'll see. So it went blue. Did you see that when we went to 0? So a very quick, easy way, color coded, particularly if you've got a couple monitors and you just want to quickly scan your positions, you can look for the color code. If I close out this chart, right, I've got my original position and I've got my working order. So I sold at an average price of 71.75, and then I've got a working order down here for a price of 50. And if I want to amend that working order, I can do it right from here. Maybe I say, I think it'll go down all the way to 40. Click amend order. Right. Those, right. So 109.80, I'm going to open up this chart again. And there we are. I closed the chart, but when it came back, all of my drawing were still there. So I can quickly scan 109.80. Again, see how this chart, because of the scaling, just going to click and drag, and we've got our order right there and our working order for 5 above. So right there, if I click on that flag, and I'm going to do that again, right? If I wanted to amend this working order, I click on amend, change the price. Maybe I just want to take a couple of contracts off if it hits there. Maybe I just want to take 3 of my 5 off. I click amend order. Alrighty, and that's been an overview of the charts, and I'm gonna hop back in here real quick. I'm happy to take some questions as well. One of the things that, in just a minute, I'm gonna show you where you can find the webinar for the new platform that was just done yesterday. Reach out to us. We've got 24-hour support for all market hours. We start on Sunday afternoon, wrap up Friday afternoon, so we got you covered around the clock during open market hours. Our phone and email for an account specialist. If you've got a live account, questions about that, give us a call, 312-884-0162. With regard to the webinar, shoot us an email. It's asknadex@nadex.com. This isn't for feedback on the platform or anything like that, or for account questions, but if you want to see different types of webinars, maybe you've heard about something you're interested in, if we can, we'll absolutely create what we can from education. We're in the process of revamping the whole education center. And so we're going to have a lot of great content, but we really want you to shape your trading experience with us and your education experience. And so, we can't promise that we'll always get it done in the next hour or even day. Education, we want to make sure it's quality and very valuable and mostly accurate. But if there's something you want to hear on one of these webinars, something you want to be introduced to, let us know, and if we can fulfill it, we absolutely will. And real quick, let me flip back to my web page here. All righty. So if you go to the Nadex website, right, underneath the Learning Center, you'll see webinars, right? That's this page right here. So it'll typically default to upcoming. This is everything we have. Oh, here's the one we're doing now. By the way, if you're ever looking at it, particularly if you're new to trading, we have morning market breakdowns every day. I'd register for those. Even if you can't make it at that time, you'll get a recording of them. A really good way, particularly if you're new to trading, is to look at how trading professionals break down the market and what they're looking at. I'm going to click, I just clicked on demand. Here's the one from yesterday, new platform walkthrough. If you haven't checked out the beta version, I definitely recommend you do. The functionality is a bit different than the current platform. If you've been with us for a while, it may feel a little bit weird, but it just takes a little while, and you can really realize how much better it is than the current platform. Very proud of it, and mostly proud because it's based on feedback from our members and our users, and we're going to continue to improve that experience, again, based on that feedback. So I definitely encourage you to watch this walkthrough, and I'm happy to take, I've already run over a bit here, so out of respect for everybody's time, happy to take some questions. While we're doing that, I'll do that. And there's our feedback page. All right, so as far as my favorite indicators, I'm kind of reluctant to actually say what they are. I mean, I'm happy to tell you, but they're different for everybody. And I want to say when I first got into trading, well, actually when I first, this was when I was young and naive. I actually placed my first orders. You've probably heard me if you've been on the webinars this week. Placed my first orders in 1997 during the tech boom, and I placed a lot of orders after that and thought this was so easy. And why wasn't everybody doing this? Because you buy and the market goes up, and you buy and the market goes up, and until it doesn't. And then I quickly realized I wasn't trading. I was just buying and the market was going up and I didn't know what to do when it was going down. So there is a point to this story that I'll get to. So when the tech bubble burst, right, and I was sitting there not knowing what I was doing, that's when I really realized I wasn't trading. And thankfully, being in Chicago, there's a lot of traders, and I had a lot of good friends that were professional traders that were more than willing to, after they ridiculed me for a while, help me out. And that was really very valuable. But I remember then even thinking, gosh, if only I knew what the pros used, if only I knew what indicators on what time frames and how they were looking at the markets. I've since learned that that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all because everybody is different. A guy I used to trade with, we traded the exact same methodology. We were looking at chart patterns, fib ratios, trend lines. It's actually a pretty simple methodology. We were trading in the FX space. We sat about 5 feet from each other. He was trading on 1 minute charts, very quickly scalping the market using the same methodology. And I was trading on 15-minute charts. Now, one would think you're using the exact same methodology, the time frame shouldn't matter, but it absolutely does. And so you got to find what's right for you. There's nothing wrong with learning about indicators or looking at how other people trade, but it'll never be the answer. So I'm happy to share with you. I've over the years used very few indicators. I mean, actually, over the years I've used a lot of indicators, particularly when I first started studying technicals. And I think everybody goes through that process, right? I think Ichimoku is a great indicator. You need to study it. That can be a lifelong study in and of itself. And I've used that to trade FX. Really, one of my favorites is the RSI, but again, not for overbought, oversold. And the reason I say that is markets can be overbought or oversold for a long time. I've also seen them make sharp moves in the middle. I actually like looking at what's called trend line divergence with the RSI. So I have a trend line on my price graph. If I'm getting like an uptrend, but my RSI is actually downtrending a little bit, I like to look at that. Again, it's not perfect, right? And a lot of this has to come with just time and experience. The one thing I'd say, whenever you're trading, probably the best piece, other than having a trading plan, and this should be in your trading plan, is to track every single trade you do. And I don't mean go out to an Excel spreadsheet. and do that, but particularly if you're trading technicals. If you simply take a screenshot, I'm going to show you the $10 solution to better your trading over the course of time. If you don't have a printer, it might be more than $10. But if you have a printer and you go out and you buy a ream of printer paper, you go get a 3-hole punch and you get a 3-ring binder, right? When you place a trade, take a quick screenshot, right? Drop it into like a PowerPoint, Word document, whatever tool of choice is there. I like PowerPoint just because it seems to scale better for the charts, right? You can make a couple notes on it, but print that chart out. And do this when you take a screenshot, when you first get into the trade. You can take it during the trade as well if there's something interesting you're seeing, and then at the close of the trade. And just mark what the result was, whether that was, whether you made money or whether you lost money. It's going to be particularly important to do this for all of them. But if you lose money on a trade, you've already lost money. You might as well learn from it. Make it valuable for the long run. And the reason I say this is you'll find patterns, not just in the market, but in yourself. And unless you print them out, and I recommend this for everybody, at some point you'll come along, maybe do a frustrating patch. It's so helpful to go back, look at these screenshots, and lay them out on a big table. And it's like a puzzle, and you will start to see patterns develop. And you can organize them however you want, by date, by losses, by profits, by instrument, all of the above. But really an important tool. So I definitely recommend that for everybody. As far as favorite indicators, we've got a lot of webinars on different strategies. If you're new, I definitely recommend look at how some different people trade, but then find out what's right for you. And I've now run way over time. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Hopefully you found it useful. A bit of an overview of the platform, but also like to throw in some just kind of trading tips that I've learned from myself and working with individual traders a lot over the last 15 years here. So with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and best wishes in the markets.